Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Nobody's Favorite Podcast. Today we have Miss Josephine Perez with us. Today we're going to talk about the topic of something that nobody really wants to talk about. It's a really touchy topic. We're going to talk about human trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking. We're going to be talking about some things that may trigger some people. So just this is a trigger warning, a disclaimer. If this
Definitely a trigger warning.
if this is something that is not going to really sit right with you, or you're going to have a hard time listening to this, I'd let you know now. Maybe you should not listen to this episode. Plenty of other episodes you can listen to,
Yeah,
but this one really just may not be
it's
for
not.
you. All right. So with that said, we're going to get into this. I'm going to let Miss Josephine Perez introduce herself, give you a little bit of her backstory, who she is, and the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you. So I'm a mom. I do events and stuff, but on my downtime, I like to sorry about that. On my downtime, I like to study. I like to read. I like to get certified and stuff everybody else wouldn't do. Um, so one of the things aside from first aid, AED, all that other stuff, certifications that I have domestic violence, bullying prevention and awareness, um, so many conflict resolution. One of the ones that I took and became certified in was sex trafficking, human trafficking. And yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, I can only imagine having to sit through a class where they talk about all of these different things, a lot of which we're going to talk about now. So again, another
Hmm.
disclaimer before we get into this: if this is something that you're going to be a little weak with in the stomach, or might not want the kids to listen to this episode. So, all right. Well, with that said, so what I'm going to do is I was doing some research, and I didn't really know much about this myself. What really got me into it was I started seeing, like, around the 4th of July, I started seeing a lot of advertisements for a movie called The Sound of Freedom. I don't know if you saw that movie or not.
I
Um,
haven't seen it.
okay, have you heard of it?
I have heard of it.
Okay,
I
yeah,
haven't
so
watched it. I stay away from certain movies because
yeah,
they're triggers.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, it's hard to get through some stuff.
yeah. That movie was definitely, I would have to say, like, the most important movie I've ever seen. I'm not gonna say it was the greatest movie because it's not meant to be a great movie, but it was a very important
Right.
movie to me because it was real eye opening, and I made me realize a lot of things. Not that I didn't necessarily overlooked or neglected, but a lot of things about what's happened, how it happens. That's really like, yo, what the fuck? Like, that's some crazy shit. Like, certain scenes you
Yeah,
see in this film, and what even blows my mind even more is that this is a true story, this film. So not only is it a
I
true story
heard.
that this story happened, it's a true story that's still ongoing and happening. Like, it happens every day. It's still true stories every day. This is just one of the many fucking stories that are out there. Um, but yeah, so I went to go see that movie with my spouse, and it was eye opening for me, and it was kind of hard for her to watch, in a sense, because the two main children in that movie were the same age as her kids, two of her kids.
Ouch.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah,
a boy and a girl, and the same exact age as her boy and girl. So that was a little rough, you know.
that'll definitely do it to you.
Yeah, that makes it hit even closer to home than just having kids. You know what I mean? When you can actually,
Hmm.
like, place it, that shit is that's something, that's a whole different beast right there. Um, but yeah, so some of the things in my research of this topic that I came across was really eye opening to me. Like, I'm going to go through a couple of them, then I'll pause, and then, I mean, I guess you can just give me your insights and your views based on what you've learned, and if any
Yeah,
of these are some of the things that came up in your classes, like, let me know, like, because then I definitely know I'm on the right track with finding out
yeah, of
some of this
course.
information. Um,
Right.
so the main thing that stood out to me, honestly, is the first thing that I have on here, right? And I kind of thought this was where it was gonna go, but I didn't want it to go there. But pretty much the biggest consumer of child porn in the world is the United States of America.
which is disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. So which means
It's growth.
it's crazy. So it literally means this. So all that says to me is that when I go to the store, there's people in that store right now that have child porn on their computer. When I go to fucking anywhere, the church, the bus, I don't really go to bus stop, but at the bus stop, fucking at the chicken spot, at anywhere, like anywhere you go, there's gonna be a motherfucker that has
It's
a high
disgusting.
probability.
It's disgusting. Not only that, though, so they did a study in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 70% of the buyers were married or in long-term relationships.
Interesting.
In the United States, 80% of buyers were either married or in a steady relationship that was sexually satisfying.
Wow. So I didn't even come across
So
that data.
so you have to this is mind-boggling, right? Because you have to think 80% are married. It makes you question, who is your friend married to? Who are you married to? Who are, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Yeah.
sickening that your spouse, your husband, could possibly be the one who is promoting this and a buyer. Um,
So that
what was
makes a lot of
more,
sense too, in a
Mhm.
sense of like the majority of marriages in America end in divorce. So this could be a lot of the reasons. I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of times people don't like to talk about air out their dirty laundry, no matter how bad it is. This could
Mhm.
be a lot of the reasons that like women are finding out that their man is like doing this wild shit, and then they're not with it. They have kids and they want to get their kids away.
One would hope, right? But when there's a lot of times, or at least from women, other women I've spoken to, and it's a majority of the women I've spoken to who have been sexually abused,
Mm-hmm.
and parents don't acknowledge it, or they choose to assume you're lying or making the story up. So who's to know if wives really know and that's why they're leaving? You know what I'm saying? Like, people like to
Yeah,
pretend they don't see shit,
yeah.
you
You
know?
see that in
So
a
that
lot in
brings you to
movies
a
too.
whole nother level of something. Like, I personally know someone who, I don't want to put no names out there, but who knew of a situation happening
Mm-hmm.
and did nothing about it. The abuser left the household and they brought the abuser back in.
Mm.
So, knowing what they knew, they wanted this person back in their lives. So that makes you question, are these women leaving because they're finding this out, or do they care?
Yeah, this is that's wild. I you see a lot in movies where like the mom or the wife, they just like they know what's going on, but they just so they're like, oh, it's time to go to the store. I guess I gotta go to the store right now. The fridge full of groceries,
Right.
nothing to get, but they'll just like leave because they know what's about to happen. They don't want to see it because then they'll have to address it and fucking pretty much
Right.
like acknowledge that it's real, and they
Right.
just avoid it entirely, which is fucked up. Which is crazy because
It
my
is.
second thing on here, my second bullet point on my list was the biggest financiers of child sexploitation material and abductions. Pretty much, for those need explanation, pretty much the people who pay the money for child sexploitation material and abductions are U.S. citizens. It's crazy. So even though these kids are getting taken from Venezuela, Honduras, Argentina, fucking West Africa, the people who are paying for these abductions are Americans. It's sick. It's fucking
So
sick.
I got a better one for you. I got a better one for you. The people who are the people who are let I want to give you proper I want to give you what I wrote. I wrote down a couple notes too. 50%, almost 50% of trafficking cases begin with a family member.
Yep. Yep.
So there
And
goes that.
and what's crazy is a lot of times that number includes like family members who don't even know. So like say let's go to Sound of Freedom. This father, he gets tricked into bringing his kids down to this modeling agency. So technically the father
Right.
facilitated the kid to go to there, and then he goes back to pick the kids up. The whole thing is gone. No sign on the door anymore. Kids are gone. Desk, everything is just vanished. You know, like nobody was ever there. So it could be unknowingly that these family members are putting the children in harm's way. You know what I mean? It's
Not only that, a lot of these people are being offered jobs, money,
mm-hmm.
help with education. So you're thinking
Citizenship.
that you're going to put your kid up, citizenship. You're thinking that you're going to give your kid a better life. You're thinking your kid is going to be able to go to school and get educated, something that you can't do in your country, or even more so here. Like you can't afford private, care or whatever the case may be, private education. And these people come about and they give you these false promises. And before you know it, your kid is gone. You have no contact, and your kid is being drugged up somewhere and
Yeah.
used as a sex slave.
Yeah, it's fucking sick, man. It's so next bullet point that I have on here, which again, I figured it was a high number, but I didn't think that this big of a margin was what I was going to see. And this, though this doesn't necessarily have anything to directly do with the sex trafficking, this facilitates people
Mhm.
wanting it. So I found out like at least 30% of internet traffic is porn. 30%
Yeah.
of the time that people spend on the internet is looking at porn, creating porn, fucking marketing porn. It's going to be pornography. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that, as we know, whether you're religious or scientific or whatever you want, whatever you believe in, you know that porn rots the brain and it causes addictions that lead to other things. Porn is the gateway drug, not weed. It's the that's the shit that really fucks you up.
Leave the weed alone. It's not the weed.
No, but
Nah.
seriously, it's
So
wild the shit that porn leads to.
so to add to that, right? Out of 854 prostitutes in 9 different countries, 49% were forced to participate in pornography, and 47% were physically and abusively forced to do things men had seen in other pornography.
There you go. These guys watch porn. They see all of the shit. Like and this leads us back to the situation where you spoke about earlier. And it like things are starting to like I don't say come full circle, but things are starting to like link up and make sense. These men are
Mm-hmm.
sexually happy in sexually satisfying relationships, but maybe their woman just won't do
Right.
something. They just won't do something. You know what I mean, and that they seen in the porn. So now they're like, you know
So
what?
now,
I'm gonna find somebody to do to something that's on this porn. And
so
unfortunately,
now here's this, right? So now, another thing that I learned, right, is that buyers, the buyers
mm-hmm.
who are sexually satisfied, don't necessarily do it so much for the sex. They do it more so for the power. So they want to beat, slap, and intimidate their victims. They want to use deadly weapons and make
Mm-hmm.
somebody bow down to them. They like the idea of doing these routine activities. And
Yeah.
so it's not about the sexual satisfaction for them, it's the power.
It definitely is because a lot of these people come from environments like white collar jobs where they talk down to all the time. Even if they're the boss, they're always under the thumb of the stockholders. They're I gotta please these people. I gotta please these people. I gotta please these people. They go
Mm-hmm.
home. They're fucking. Even if they're in a happy relationship, they see their wife for what, an hour, if that. Then it's time to go to sleep. I wake up in 3 hours, get back to work. You know what I mean? To maintain this lifestyle that I have. So it they
It's almost
they
like a bully, right? So a bully's going through stuff on a day-to-day
yeah
basis or
yeah.
going through stuff at home and they feel low. So
Yep.
what ends up happening is they pick on someone defenseless to make them feel more powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of goes, together. That's basically what it boils down to. Like, you're
Absolutely.
busy
That's
taking
that's
heat
that's
from everyone.
in essence, that's all it is. It's just a person who has no power, who wants to feel like they do have power. So who has less power than a man with no power? A child. You know what I mean? Like, and the only power that
Yep.
this child has is their story that they can tell about this abuse. And those people will spend every dollar they can to make sure these stories are not told. They keep them in cargo containers, in basements, in fucking in areas that nobody will ever find them. It will just it becomes a horrible, I don't want to say a horrible life for these kids, because it's not even a fucking life. It becomes a horrible existence.
Yeah. So the thing is, right, they don't just keep them in cargo containers. Like, a lot of times they're right under our noses.
Oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
there was hotels that recently came about where they found hidden rooms, like hidden floors and stuff that you could move and hide. I'm not going to mention any hotels because I don't want, anybody getting into any trouble, you getting into any trouble, or get into any trouble.
No, no,
But
no.
there was
Anything that's public
hotels
knowledge is
that
public knowledge.
came out. Yeah, so there were hotels, and it's high end hotels who
Absolutely.
are keeping these kids and these spaces where they can hide them at. Um, a lot of this occurs in beauty salons, massage parlors, um, the spas and bus stations is where they picking them up from. You know what I'm saying? Truck stops. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, because the truckers stop, they're on the road all the time.
It's a big
There's
spot where they
trucks filled
interchange
with
it.
these.
Exactly. They exchange their
Yeah. So,
cargo, and they just bring people from one truck to
right,
another truck.
exactly. So now, another thing was that I learned that the truck drivers use their radios using certain codes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's certain codes like Lolita
Yeah.
and Amber Alert. And that's basically to let people know, like, hey, we got, kids for sale. Like, come take your pick, come take a look. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's disgusting. It's disgusting. They target the strip clubs, they target restaurants, bars, like residential group homes. I remember I was in a spot when I was younger, and a lot of the people there, like a lot of the teens there, were like, oh, I'm going to see this person, I'm going to see that
Mm-hmm.
person. And I remember, my mom used to drill it in my head, like, you be careful wherever you go, like, people will use you and sell your little ass.
I remember being in high
They'll
school, and the
promise you
girls
shit.
and the 15, 16-year-old girls like, hey, I'm about to go see this guy. He about to, after he gets out of school. Oh, school to go to?
Right.
College? College? What are you, 21, 22?
No, yeah, it was crazy. So it wasn't just, in the place where I was, it wasn't just that they were dating outside of, their age or older men. Like, they were really in the midst of getting pulled into these things. Like, there were a few girls that got pulled into prostitution and couldn't get out,
Mm-hmm.
and the pimp would come by and pick them up from this spot, and they would have to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was crazy. It was
Yeah.
crazy. I remember me and my cousin on Queensboro Plaza. Wasn't Queensboro Plaza? Queens Plaza. One of them two. Whatever. We were over there by LaGuardia College. We're
Yeah.
getting on the train. We're coming out of a car. We're coming out of a car with a guy that I know. He drops us off at the train station because 36th Avenue train station wasn't working.
Okay.
This girl comes and approaches us. My cousin a little on her head, you feel me? So she talking with the girl. I'm like, bro, I don't like this. This is fishy. And I see one dude on this side, the other girls on that side. And they're like, oh, you girls ever thought about, getting into prostitution? And I was like, what the fuck? Hell no, bitch. I'm telling my cousin,
Mm-mm-mm.
I'm like, girl, come
They
on.
was
They
trying to
trying to
recruit
recruit
you.
us. And they were trying to recruit us. I'm not even playing. And I
It's
told the
crazy.
officer, I said, I stopped the officer and I was like, listen, we being followed. My cousin's a little drunk. We being followed. I'm trying to get home. Like, I just want to make sure I can get there safe. One of the officers actually had the nerve to be like, oh, they just serviced somebody. Don't pay them any mind. And I was like, wait the fuck a minute. Like, I knew whose car I got out of. Like, what are you talking about? I wish I remember that man's name because he dead ass said, don't pay them any mind. They just serviced somebody. and I was sick to my stomach. I stopped
That's
traveling at night
crazy.
because of that. And I
Yeah,
never, since that time, I've never been to that train station ever. Like ever. I've
yeah.
never
It's
been
it's
to
it's
that
it's
train station
unfortunate. I
again.
don't really know. I can count. It's easier for me to tell you how many women haven't told me that something's like that has happened to them, like some kind of sexual thing where they're on a train, somebody just pulls their pants out, pulls their dick out, or like they're being accosted by some people just while they're walking because of what they're wearing, or in the club, somebody grabs
Hmm.
them. More women tell me stories that it has happened to them than I know of where it hasn't happened, and it's fucking insane. You know what I mean? Oh my! When I
It's
was little, my uncle did
disgusting.
this. I woke up and my uncle was standing over me, and I kind of feel like something happened. I mean, more often than not, if you feel like something happened, probably did happen. Unfortunately, you know what I mean. So these are crazy situations, and in my research, I started to find out some things that I felt really, really, really interesting. Right? I thought this so. I came across the fact that it stated that men are more sexually stimulated by visuals, which explains porn. You know what I mean? Whereas
Hmm.
females are more semantic in their sexual stimulation, hence like them wanting to read more or use their imagination, which made sense in like 50 Shades
Right.
of Grey being the top selling novel of all fucking time. You know what I mean? So it's like, and then even more to that, what made it crazy to me was I saw that there was they did a survey of what women found attractive, right? In their,
Hmm.
I guess, their novels, or what they found sexy and romantic. So the data showed that
Right.
vampires, werewolves, pirates, surgeons, and billionaires are the top 5 most attractive male types to women in this regard. Which, when I started thinking about it,
I'm sorry.
listen, it's crazy. It's crazy. Because I started thinking about it. I'm like, vampires and werewolves. Oh shit, Twilight. Oh fuck. Billionaires, 50
Hmm.
Shades of Grey. Pirates, women love Johnny Depp, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I'm like, holy shit. This was crazy. Surgeons, women just love doctors. Everybody knows women love doctors. So, like, and surgeons are
Right.
the ones who have the steady hands. They're good with their hands. So it makes sense that a woman would like a surgeon. So I'm like, oh, this is wild. So I'm learning a lot. Like, as I'm going down this rabbit hole of fucking terror, I'm learning about all these other things, which were pretty fucking interesting. You know what I mean? So that really split, like, that was the female pornographic pattern. Those 5 male types in like novels and movies, and women weren't watching these
That's
men have
funny because I'm
sex.
actually
They
reading
just think
two
about it.
novels, and my two favorite novels happen to be a werewolf. The other one is a billionaire.
See, see, it's wild. Like, the data don't lie.
But
The data don't
the
lie.
the novels are wild. The
And
novels are wild.
but again, leads it back to women being more semantic, where now you read it and it leads up to your imagination. Now you have to piece it together in your
Hmm.
brain, like, based on the description.
Right.
So that that is really, really, really fucking interesting to me, right? So then, moving along, I started looking into more international things. I saw the U.S. stuff, the U.S. statistics. Get more into the U.S. ones in a little bit, but I started looking international, right? So I started
Hmm.
looking like within a 10-year period, because I didn't want to go too far. I mean, back, I wanted to stay within modern days, modern times. So in 2016, the International Labor Organization stated that between stated that 3.3 million out of the 24.9 million children, people trafficked, that they had on record were children, right? So 3.3 million out of 24.9 million is crazy. That's great, and that's just what
Okay.
one organization had in numbers. Plenty of other organizations that their
My
research
numbers
found
are a
far
little
different.
higher.
I'm sure they are.
My numbers are a little higher. Yeah, my numbers are a little higher, and the it's disgusting. Like it's gross. So as many as 10 million, there are as many as 10 million child prostitutes worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
That's worldwide, right? These numbers, of course, are hard when we talk about prostitution or we talk about trafficking, because these are things that are left under the rug. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? These are
Yeah.
things that aren't kept track of. Um, in 2012, the International Labor Organization reported a little over 20 million people were forced into labor,
Mm-hmm.
and a little over 4 million were forced into sexual exploitation. In 2016, there was an estimated 25 million.
Okay. So hold
And
on, what seconds? Yeah. So I read. You're right. I read my thing wrong. I wrote 3.3 million to 24.9 million were children. Yeah. So up about
yeah,
25 million. That's wild. That's wild.
so
So
25 million were forced into labor, and then 5 million were forced into sexual
yeah,
exploitation.
yeah. It's a fucked up situation all over the fucking globe. Like 2019, right? Here I have Turkey had the highest abduction rate in the world in 2019, right?
Wow.
So yeah, so people look at Turkey as an underdeveloped country, which in a lot of areas it is.
Hmm.
Istanbul is a different part of the area. They're more modern and have a lot of technology, but Turkey is war torn. Turkey has a lot of like civil conflict. So when people go
Hmm.
missing, it's oh, maybe they died, maybe they got killed, maybe they rebelled,
Yeah.
maybe they joined the opposition. There's so many
Hmm.
excuses that they can give to not look for these people, especially children.
It's swept under the rug. Nobody cares. It's like the forgotten souls. Like nobody gives a shit to even bother to go looking.
Yeah, it's fucking it's absolutely sick. It's absolutely sick, right? So now in West Africa, they have I found that the I didn't really find any numbers for West Africa, but I found what I read from West Africa to be like the saddest thing out of all of them. Because in West Africa, it's said that nearly every single person who is sex trafficked is a child.
That is sad as shit.
Like it's not a 30%, it's not a 40%, it's nearly 100% of the sex trafficking victims are children in Western Africa. That shit blew my fucking mind. Like I understand, I knew there was a lot of like child slavery, having them like mine the lithium mines and the copper mines for like all these fucking electric cars and all of this fucking technology and shit.
Mhm.
But I wasn't aware that the sex trade was that prevalent for children in Western Africa.
So here I got 10 million child prostitutes worldwide, with the practice more so in South America and Asia, with girls outnumbering the boys,
Mm-hmm.
despite the increase in the young men, because more and more people are requesting boys over girls.
And the biggest reason psychologically why more people are requesting boys over girls is boys are scared to say that something happened to them. A girl, yes, she's scared too, but it's a woman. A man looks at it in
A,
the sense of
a
like
boy is less
it's
likely
more
to speak up.
acceptable. Yeah, a girl, it's more acceptable if the girl says something to happen to her than me as a boy. I'm not going to become a man if people know this happened to me. So
Right.
let me just forget about it. Let me suppress it in the deepest, darkest fucking parts of my brain to where I never think about it again. And though they think they never think about it again, subconsciously they're dwelling on it. And then I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but a high fucking majority of the time, they become a sexual predator themselves.
Yeah.
Cycle just repeats,
Um,
fucking over and over.
it's bad. So we went thinking about that. My husband took us to Dorney Park over the summer, and it was like end of summer trips. We did a couple things or whatever. And in Dorney Park, we're having a good time. The kids are having a good time. We're walking through Dorney Park, and I see two young girls,
Mm-hmm.
two Caucasian females. They're together, and they approach and they're like, "Oh, we're selling these little bracelets. It's like, the little bracelets you make in school with the little beads and stuff."
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, no, thank you." I'm like, "No, thank you." And then after they walk off, I look at my husband and I'm like, "Did you just see those two little girls?" And he's like, I'm like, "I don't see anybody walking with them."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, they probably with a group or whatever." And I'm like, "Joe, that shit rings off as sex trafficking, like human trafficking. I don't want to make it seem like everything is human trafficking, but I said that shit just gave me a nasty vibe, right?
Yeah.
So we continue about our walk, and here comes two different girls, a Caucasian girl with a Spanish girl. And again, they look at me, but they don't say anything. But I notice in their hands, they're holding the little friendship bracelets, the little beaded bracelets around their fingers. And at that point, I had like chills all over my body. And I'm like, I want to say something. I want to question it, but I'm looking around. Like, I'm trying to see if anybody's following them, if anybody, if
Yeah.
they're walking with a group. So then, as we continue, another two separate girls, we stop for a ride, and another two girls are walking. And I notice again the bracelets. They don't approach me, but they approach other people. I'm watching them as they approach. And again,
Yeah.
I look at my husband and I'm like, Joe, that shit is ringing off. Something funny's going on. And then in studying for my certification, I noticed, I'm gonna try not to get emotional because this pisses me off when I think about it. I feel like I should have said something or should have asked questions. Um in studying, they say that, they tell you ways to identify trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways of identifying trafficking is people or kids selling meaningless things that nobody would want. So
Mm-hmm.
when you think about what I encountered and you think about the trafficking stuff,
Yeah.
you think about what they were trying to sell, it's like, could I have saved 6 girls? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it sits in my head, and I've never been one to like shy away from opening my mouth or speaking up. So in my head, I'm like, I'm here with my kids. These girls are maybe a little bit older than my 10-year-old. Were they in trouble? Like, could I have done something to change something? You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think one of them did give me a vibe like she was a little iffy and scared, but the other ones look like say they you were to find out they were they look like they would not speak up. You know what I'm saying? Like they were there to
Yeah. Very
monitor the
timid.
other girls that they were with. Yes,
Okay.
like it one of the one girl looked a little more advanced than the others. You know what I'm saying? Like
Got
in
you. Got
the
you.
group, in the 3 groups that I encountered, one out of the 2 girls always looked like a little, timid, like a little scared.
Mm.
And it just, those girls' faces, I will not forget their faces because it caught me that bad. Like it got to me that bad. Like, so,
Yeah.
I think about them a lot. Like, and I just pray that I'm wrong. I pray that, it
I mean,
was
hopefully it was just a
nothing and
field
maybe I'm
trip and they were just
overthinking things.
selling. Yeah. I
I'm
mean, it's
praying,
hard not
but
to
it
think that.
didn't give that vibe. And
Yeah.
then you
It's
look
it's
at the
it's
way
it's
they're dressed and it's just, it's a
yeah.
sad
It's
situation.
hard not to like think about situations like that, especially when it's so prevalent everywhere you look. Um, there was a situation like a couple weeks ago where I had to go to my woman's job to drop. We had exchanged vehicles, right? So I had to drop off my car, I was picking up her car. Her shit's better on gas, so I was going like on a long distance trip. So I was like, let me get her shit. So I went, I got hers, and as I'm waiting for her to bring the keys outside, um, some guy comes out the back of the building because her office building is connected to a residential building. So some guy comes out the building, and behind him, a little boy runs out. So the little boy, at first I thought the little boy was with him, but the guy goes, gets in his vehicle, drives away. The little boy is still out there. So I'm looking around, I'm like, who the fuck? Why is this little boy out here? He had to be maybe 3, if that. Right. So
Oh,
he
wow.
starts, we're over here at in a parking lot, and right behind the parking lot is like a grassy hill, and then behind the hill is a creek, and it's running water. So like there's a lot of water running. Recently had a lot of rain and stuff at that time. So he starts running up the hill. So I'm like, oh shit, if he goes into that water, like ain't nobody ever gonna see this kid again. So I ran, I grabbed the kid, I brung him down. Somebody else happened to come outside, get the kid. My woman actually works for like a child, like the early learning resources or something like that. And there was a lot of like people who work with children in there. So they came out, got the kid, guy's dad came out, but nothing happened sex trafficking with him. But the point, I say that to say this: had I not been there and there been somebody else there when this kid was by himself, it could have been an
Right. He could have
entire
easily got
different
snatched.
situation. And the kid seemed like he had a like he seemed like maybe he may have been a little autistic. He wasn't responding like a
Oh,
child usually would at that age. He was like kind of like
right.
aggressive. He didn't want to listen, and it wasn't like how the typical 3-year-old would not listen. It was a little more, you know what I mean? So I was like, had somebody taken this kid and done something with this kid, how could he even tell anybody? How would he even be able to articulate it to anyone? You know? So that's what really made me. That's what really made me like. Now I think about that shit all the time. You know what I mean? Ever since I saw this movie, I think about stuff like that all the time when I see a child when they're by themselves or like scantily dressed or something like that. It's just it ain't good. It ain't good, and it fucks me up in the head.
Nah, it definitely opens your eyes to a lot of stuff. Like just encountering different things. And I think more so too as a parent
Mm-hmm.
and coming from where we come from, we're a bit more alert.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my charger and stuff.
No, you good. You got stay plugged up.
But no, I think that as a parent, right, you become more alert to certain things that other people might not see. You start to look around and be like, hold on, this doesn't make sense. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Or like, does this make sense? You start to question your surroundings, and especially when there's kids around, doesn't matter doesn't matter if their minds or not. Like, I'm always visual. I'm always vigilant when there's kids around. I monitor when there's water. I monitor everybody's kid,
Yeah.
like it's just everybody needs to be vigilant. Everybody needs to be mindful of the stuff that goes on. Um I think that these are things that I know from just reading. You know what I'm saying? Cuz like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I like to read. So when I took this class, I was like, wow, like I think every parent, there's certain certifications I feel like every parent should have, right? So you have a kid, kids choke, right? So you want to know how to do CPR. You want to be able to help your kid in the event of them choking.
Absolutely.
Your kid, drowns, you want to be able to jump in that water and get your kid out of there, right? Those are like things that parents should absolutely know how to do.
Yep.
Um, So for me, it's like the same way you would need first aid or CPR. I think that taking classes like this, most people will blow it off, but I think that taking classes like this is so beneficial. I think
Absolutely.
that it's needed, right? Because not only can you help somebody else's child, but you know how to be vigilant for your own kid. You know what to watch. You know what I'm saying? You know how to be careful. Like there's parents, I see parents all the time, kids in the park, and they be like, go ahead, go to the bathroom. I'm standing right here. But do you know who's standing in that bathroom stall?
Anything can happen inside the
Do you
bathroom.
know if anybody's in that bathroom? Even though it's a female bathroom, do you know if a male went in there prior to you walking up to that bathroom? These are
Yeah.
all things that as parents we need to be mindful of. You can put your kid in the stall. I see parents walk out and stand outside the bathroom after they walk them in. But who's to say there's not somebody in the other stall that doesn't belong there?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Who's to say they won't find another way out of the bathroom? You're thinking it's one way in. These things are things that people need to be mindful of.
Yeah, a lot of people think that parenting is I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. It's experience. I got to learn along the way. When parenting is just like anything else, you can hone your skills. Just like LeBron James and Steph Curry, and they spend a lot of time in the gym shooting the basket to make sure they got their skills down pat to where anytime a situation occurs, oh, somebody's coming from the left, I know how to go right. Somebody's coming from the right, I know how to go left. Parenting is the same way. You can take different classes, like
Right.
you said, on CPR, first aid. There's so many different things you can do to hone your skills as a parent. Even things where it doesn't like taking classes. You can set designated areas. Oh, if there's a fire, everybody meet up here. You know what I mean? This is what we need to do.
That
Not
my
only having
mom
fire
used to
drills
do
in
that when
school,
we were
have fire
kids.
drills at home. Yeah, you know? So
Right,
there's plenty of different things you learn along the way as a parent, but there's also things that other people have learned that you can get from them so you don't have to learn along the way. Because I don't want to have to learn
right,
at worst case scenario about a lot of stuff. Like I would like to know how to save my child from choking before they start choking, you know?
right.
So
Exactly.
that to me makes
You
more
don't
sense.
want
Be
hands-on
proactive
treatment.
about it. You know what I mean? So same thing with the dangers of society. You want to be able to see the dangers lurking at a playground, at a school, at a fucking ice cream parlor, at a McDonald's, anywhere, jump a trampoline house. You want to be able to go in there and scope the surroundings and realize like who belongs and who doesn't, who's here and does not have a child.
Right,
You know what I mean? Who's here
right,
dressed like they're trying to look the part? You know what I mean? Like who has their
right,
camera out look, it looks like they're on social media, but every time a kid moves, that phone moves too. You know what I mean? Like
right.
who's doing these things?
Not
You
only that,
can
they
you can
use
teach yourself
kids
these
to
things.
recruit other kids. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So you got to be careful of who's with a kid that the kid don't look like they belong there. You know
Yep,
what I'm
yep.
saying?
And
Like,
always
what
pay
is this
attention.
kid doing?
One of the key things that you can pay attention to as a parent in those exact situations are why is this 13-year-old kid talking to my 4-year-old daughter? That's fucking weird.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why aren't they
That's
talking
a
to a kid their own
huge,
age?
huge red flag.
Yeah. You know
A
what I mean?
huge red flag.
Huge red flag. So things like that, always staying aware of. You know, your kid's like, oh, I gotta use the bathroom, and another kid's like, oh, I'll take them. No, the fuck you won't. You won't be taking my kid to the bathroom. I got this. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? So no,
Right.
like there's always signs, and there's always, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some motherfuckers have been doing this shit for so long. They look at the celebrities, right? Who utilize their power, and you'll never think of it. Like you had Jeffrey Epstein situations. He had a whole fucking island of stuff like this going on. You had R. Kelly situation where he was dealing with Aaliyah in our faces. Same time he's making songs with like um she's making songs like Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. He's making songs like Bump and
Mm-hmm.
Grind. Like it's wild. You know what I'm saying? Things are
But
sometimes
it was
clearly in your
accepted
face.
because they had money.
People utilize their power and their influence to skate by on a lot of things. Like it, even today, fucking. So in my studies, I came across a lot of different celebrities and famous people and politicians who either had scandals or got caught, or after they died, shit came to light, right? So
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, Charles Manson and his people killed actress Sharon Tate, right? Sharon
Okay.
Tate was married to Roman Polanski. Roman Polanski was accused of, let me see exactly what her age was. I don't have the age, but was charged with raping a minor, right? And while he was going to court, he was never convicted because he fled to France and still lives in France to this
Oh, wow.
day. Never was extradited, nothing like that. Never sent back here for prosecution, nothing. During the trials, Mans went to France and lives there to this day. So there's when you know certain people, when you have certain power, certain influence, you can just do whatever the fuck you want to do, is what they're making it look like. You know what I mean? And it's what
Yep.
makes it, and that's how it feels like to these victims. So that's why a lot of victims don't fucking say anything, because they're like, okay, if I say something, what happens? I get put right back in the
Right.
situation and it becomes even worse.
Now that you say that, so I was in the studying, and the United Nations suggests that women and children
Mm-hmm.
are not only at risk for trafficking, but also re-victimization.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Absolutely.
brings back, it's to add to that point where it's like, victims are like, what the hell's the point? You know what I'm saying? Like, um, and they gave, a list of most wanted victims, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or more most looked at. So in that list, they of course had refugees, migrants, lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex individuals, religious minorities, people with disabilities, and people with lack of citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
That's damn near everybody. That's damn near everybody. So nobody is exempt from falling into this nonsense. You know what I'm saying? This
Absolutely.
disgusting circle. Um, Another thing was that, you know, of course, like I said before earlier, it's not, the statistics aren't necessarily accurate, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know,
the numbers are
trafficking
skewed,
is
but the
a
facts
hidden
are that
situation.
there are
So
numbers.
the numbers are much bigger, I can imagine,
Absolutely. Oh, I
right?
can assure.
But in 2005, profits from human trafficking was $9 billion. Catching up to speed, it's a 90 as estimated $99 billion industry. 99 billion from 2005. So, you know, that's when you think about that as a parent, as an aunt, as an uncle, as a human being, like, this shit is scary. Like,
It's
this shit is really
scary.
freaking scary.
It's scary. It's disgusting. It's like you don't know who it is. Like we spoke about it earlier. Like
And
it,
that's the thing.
a lot of people think that, like, oh, I understand what the numbers say, but it would never happen here. It would never happen here. Well, the fact is, it does happen there. It has happened there. It will happen there. It will continue to happen there. Sex trafficking has been reported in all 50 states. Every single state of this country has reported fucking sex
So
trafficking. Every single one.
where I live, there's a hotel, motel, whatever it is. And there's been reports that they want this hotel or motel torn down. And you can look at it and see that it's raunchy as fuck. Like, it's gross as shit. And, my husband was passing it and he's like, that shit reeks of danger. Like, it reeks of kids are in there getting raped. They're selling drugs out of there. There's prostitution there. Like, it just reeks of negativity. Like,
Yeah.
and it's sad because the community has complained multiple times about this place and it's still up and running. And they know that there's, truckers stop there and all this other stuff. Why else would they be stopping there? Like, let's be serious. You know what I'm
The
saying? Like,
yeah,
you
the,
know
the
a shady spot when you see one.
the problem with those is that once they shut them down, like we have them over here too. Once they shut them down, you get they're closed for about 2 weeks. Now they're opened up again with a different name, a different ownership, different
With a different
management.
name. Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's just a revolving door. And then after a while, the police, the town, the city council, they all get tired of putting tax dollars into shutting the shit down, getting the police to go over there, get them to shut it down again, get them to shut it down again. Where after a while, they just turn a blind eye. And now that part of the area just becomes an undesirable area. They forget about it. There's no renovations. The streets go to shit.
Mm-hmm.
Kids go missing. Everything. Drug addicts are everywhere. It just becomes a fucking never-ending cycle of bullshit. And it's sad to see because we're supposed to live in this highly developed country. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be the leaders of the free world here, and all we are is the leaders of child sexploitation. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's really sad when you like look at the places they tell you these things most occur at, and you're like, now I gotta sit at the beauty salon and wonder like what's going on with this one, Like, is little fucking Mei Ling here because she wants to be here, or is she here, working how many hours and
Yeah.
she's praying she can get a meal at the end of the night? Like,
Yep. Yep. It's
it's scary. It's
the
scary, it's
abuse
gross, it's disgusting.
the abuse that some people have to go through before they're even double digits is unfathomable, right? So you can have these children being exploited by people they're supposed to look up to. Like, we could be watching television shows any day of the week. On this TV show, there's a person who secretly is doing something to children, or even if they're not doing something to children, they're still consuming the material of child porn, which
Or they know
in
someone who is
essence,
doing it.
yeah. So in essence, all of that is the same as doing something to the kid, because if you're consuming the material, that means that these people need to make more of it, right? So to make more of it, they have to keep hurting these kids. You know what I mean? If you know of people that are doing it and you're not saying anything, you're allowing them to hurt more
You're
kids.
just as
So you might as well,
guilty.
exactly, you might as well be doing
It's
it
like
yourself.
guilty by
Guilty by association.
association.
Exactly. So when you have that, right? Then you have like, so there was I think his name was like Jerry Harris or something. Let me see. Yeah, Jerry Harris. He was on a show on Netflix called Cheer, right? I guess it was a cheerleading show or some shit.
Hmm.
He got sentenced to like 12 years or some shit like that because he was producing child porn.
Holy
I mean,
shit.
so then you got the dude, the CNN executive, who went to jail recently for you heard about that guy?
So, no, but I will
Yeah,
tell you,
so
I think I did actually, the CNN executive.
yeah,
But just recently, right before school started, um, or I think, yeah, it was a few days, the night before school started, actually, I received a text message from one of the softball moms. And she sent me a link, and I'm like, I opened the link, and I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, your kid doesn't go to this school, right? And I'm like, no, my son doesn't go there. And I'm like, wait a minute, why does this school sound so familiar? And I'm like, hold on, my son used to play ball there.
mm,
One of the teachers were arrested for child pornography. He had
of course.
hundreds and thousands of freaking child pornography in his computer. Like, fucking disgusting. These are teachers. Teachers, our
Teachers.
coaches, like our kids' coaches, our kids' dance teachers, our freaking governors and mayors, and you
So
know,
so the
it's
school
gross.
LIC, the school that we that the school that I was in. Did you went to LIC? Did you?
I went to LIC for a
You went
brief
to
moment,
LIC.
yeah.
Yeah. So you went to LIC for a little time. Your sister went there. I went there. We all went there. And after we grew up and graduated, one of those teachers got arrested for having sex with the
Yeah,
female students.
I remember
So
that.
I'm not gonna name any names, because I mean, if you guys want to look it up, you can look it up. But that teacher, public record, got arrested for giving minors weed, having sex with them in exchange for grades, all types of
Mm-hmm.
shit. So it's
Mm-hmm.
sick. It's sick because you expect these people to be able to nurture you, not groom you. You know what I mean? It's a fucked up
And
situation,
that's the
and
bad part.
that's the fucking
That's the
worst part.
bad part, that they are grooming. You know, you leave your kid at a dance school, you leave your kid at
Yep.
ballet practice or gymnastics, or you send your kid over to a coach's house, you know,
If
because
you
they're
leave
all
your kid
going
to
to hang
watch
out or
television,
practice.
so many of these cartoons are sexually explicit. And so, okay, so here's something. The other day, right? So I was
Mm-hmm.
this is something I watched myself, and I wanted to bring this up. So the other day I was watching well, I wasn't watching anything. I was being a loser on social media, and I was scrolling through TikTok, right? And now Senator
Mm-hmm.
John Kennedy, right? He was reading excerpts from two books that the state of Chicago is trying to get put in libraries and schools. Now,
Oh,
Secretary of State Alexei Giannalius, or whatever the fuck this dude's name, Alexei, this motherfucker, he was advocating for these books, right? So I didn't write down what the senator read, but when he read it, it was some of the most sexually explicit shit I've ever heard.
well, I heard
That was
it and
supposed
I
to be
recall what
in.
it was.
Oh, okay. So you
And
saw the shit.
I even questioned my daughter about her school library because that shit scared me.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about how the penis gets wet and injects how he told him bends over and he
yeah.
slid
So
inside him.
yep. So and then the one book was called Gender Queer, and the other one was
Uh-huh.
called All Boys Aren't Blue, right?
Right.
So you look at and you're like, yo, what the fuck? Like, I can't let them watch cartoons. I can't let them go to school. I can't. It's
You
one
can't
thing
let
to
them
want to
play
believe in what
games.
you can't let them play video
Fucking
games. Like
Roblox.
eh,
Roblox has
Roblox, yeah.
sexual rooms.
Every single thing has sexual undertones, and it's gotten to the point where you can't enjoy your child can't be a child anymore and enjoy childhood because everything has to be monitored. Before, you could let a kid be a kid and trust that The only way they're going to come across something is if they were looking for it. Now they don't
Right.
have to be looking for anything. It is going to be in their face. It's going to be promoted to them. It's going to be pushed to them. It's literally, they're going to get notifications on their phone. Like, oh, what's that? Click on it. Roblox app opens up. Here's the new game in
Many
Roblox.
times
Crazy
my
shit.
daughter has been watching something else or watching a YouTube video or whatever, and she'll be like, Mom, look what just popped up. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could erase her eyes. Like, so she won't see what just.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the sex is all over the place. The grooming is everywhere.
It's
It is
everywhere.
everywhere.
And to me, the saddest part about it being everywhere is, okay, sex sells, whatever. It's terrible to market the shit to fucking kids, but they're doing it. But there's not even a counterbalance. Like, so going back to the movie, The Sound of Freedom, right? So the movie released this year. It's 2023. The movie was completed in 2018, right? It was made by 21st Century Fox. So when Disney
Mm-hmm.
bought 21st Century Fox in that whole merger deal, they shelved the movie. They didn't put it out. You would think that Disney, you know what I mean, they're for kids. Why wouldn't they
Right.
put out a movie that's going to highlight, like, yo, this is happening in the world. Like, we need awareness about this. You know what I mean? They shelved it. Then after a couple years,
Yeah,
Disney
but
sold
Disney's a
it.
bunch of shelfie mother. Disney's
Absolutely.
a bunch of.
So
They
the
fall
foulest
under
thing
that
about it to
line.
me, absolutely, the foulest part about it to me though was worse than them shelving it. They ended up selling it to Angel Studios, which is a little tiny independent company that's owned by a couple brothers, and it's a Christian film studio. So they didn't really have the money to get it put out into like theaters or anything like that. So Disney knew, we sell it to them, there's nothing they can do with it. You know what I'm saying? Cool, they'll have it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like, maybe they'll put it on DVD and 17 people will see it. Okay, cool. What they
Right.
didn't expect was that Angel Studios did a crowdfunding campaign where they raised so much money to put the movie into theaters that they were able to give away free tickets. So people were just donating money and paying for other people to go see it. So that's how I saw it. I got 2 free tickets, one for me and one for my woman. And then after I saw it, I ended up just going on the app, pressing the button and just buying a ticket for somebody else. And whoever else wanted to see it, they got a free ticket because I bought it. So
Right.
and then it became the top movie of the year this year. So Disney had no
Wow.
idea that was gonna happen when they fucking tried to get rid of this movie. And now all of this shit's coming to light. There's so many things about sex trafficking in the media now, finally. But it's still not enough. It's still not enough awareness about what the fuck is going on inside your home that you don't even fucking know.
And the problem is too, it's so much easier. And I'm guilty of it as well because, as parents, we get so busy throughout the day that it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, stay with your cell phone or stay with your iPad or, go to your room and game. Go ahead. And it's easy because you have so much stuff to get done, right? My husband works long hours. And so that I can, live the life that I live. So, he works long hours and, I'm busy. I'm busy. I'm trying to run my business. I'm trying to start up another business. I have my daughter to take care of, the little one,
Mm-hmm.
Mackenzie. And we get services for her and stuff like that. So it's always something. Emma has softball, hobbies into basketball, and there's just always something going on. So it's so much easier that it's like, okay, well, here, take the iPad, let me finish what I have to do because I'm all over the place,
Yeah.
and you don't realize that you're basically putting it in their faces. You know what I'm saying? Like they have access to this stuff and it's
So
so easy.
so the unfortunate part about that is we're supposed to be able, when we buy our kid a game, right? Or we let them watch a TV show
Mm-hmm.
and it comes on and it says TV PG or Y7 or something. We're supposed to be like, okay, cool. This is your age group. You can watch this.
Right.
I'm good to
But
wash the
you can't.
fucking dishes, but you can't.
But you can't. Right. You
So
can't. And
that's
I learned
that's
that.
the problem. That's where we
I
are.
learned
That's where
that
our problem
because
is because there's no trust
so
factor anymore, and we can't even like rely on these things.
there's not.
Nope.
And PG-13 is no longer PG-13.
The rating
Okay.
systems constantly keep
PG-13 is
changing.
no longer. Yeah, no. Emma was watching some shows and one day I decided, oh, let me watch the show with her. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, cover your ears, cover your eyes. Like, and she's throwing the blanket over her head. And I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
a series. I've been watching it. I'm like, you've been watching it? Like, and I have nothing personal against anybody, right? You live the life you want to live. You do whatever you want to do. It's not hurting me personally in my household. I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there was a lot of lesbian activity, a lot of
Uh-huh.
gay activity,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, oh my God. So now I'm forced to have a conversation with my 10-year-old daughter about these encounters.
Yeah.
And it's fucking uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
all of these things that we're speaking on, when these things get into a child's mind, kids become curious.
Mm-hmm.
They become curious. And I feel like if you don't monitor, your kid it can also make them withdraw, right?
Yeah,
Because we're so
absolutely.
busy, you withdraw your child. In that withdrawal, your child is now a target for sex trafficking, human trafficking, and a bunch of other things. Because that's who they look for. They look for the kids that the parents are too busy. They look for those kids who are withdrawn and don't want to talk to anybody or look depressed and anxious. They look for
Mm-hmm.
them because they are easy targets. They are easy to manipulate, and you pretend to give them all this attention, and the kid is craving that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You don't mean
Yeah.
to be neglectful as a parent, but the truth is that that's what you're doing. You're being neglectful. It's hard to keep up with everything. So your
Absolutely.
kid is now getting attention from these strangers. Boom, all of a sudden your kid's missing. You can't find your
Yep.
kid. Nobody gives a shit. Why? Because your kid is either Spanish or black. Nobody gives a
Yep.
shit about our kids, right? Your kid has to have blonde hair and blue eyes for anybody to give a damn and actually search. So there's so many factors that go into this trafficking stuff. Everything we've
Oh hell
spoken
yeah.
about all comes back to
Oh
trafficking.
hell
It all
yeah.
comes back to
And
the putting that into their minds and implanting that in their heads.
everybody needs to pay attention not only to your own kids, but pay attention to your kids' friends. Because
That
sometimes there's
part.
things going on in your kids' friends' lives that they need help too. And there's no one there to help them. You know what I mean? And the unfortunate reality is a lot of times when there's something going on in those kids' lives and they don't want it to happen to them no more, they'll bring their friends over so it can happen to their friends and it can stop
That
happening to them.
I was just gonna say that exactly. A lot of people use kids to bring other kids in. Oh well, I'll stop dealing with you if you bring me such and such.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm
So
saying?
and the
And
kid is
I've
not even trying to be
always,
malicious. He's not even trying to hurt his friend. He just wants to stop it
yeah, he's
hurting
just
him
trying to
happening
save
to him.
himself. Yeah, he's just trying to save himself. And my mom was always big on that. Like, we used to be mad at my mom. Like, oh, why can't I spend the night in this person's house? Why can't I spend the night in that person's house? You know my mom. My mom was super
Yeah,
strict.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we
yeah,
were
yeah.
probably the only boy allowed in the house.
That was because I was getting tutored.
But yeah, but no, like, it was very, very scary even then. But everything she installed in me, I practice with my kids because I
Mm,
don't let my kids go spend the night in anybody's house. That's hard for me.
yeah,
My mother-in-law took the kids out to Kalahari. I had a whole heart attack when I found out, the kids were talking to me and they're like, oh yeah, Grandma Isabel's over there and we're over here. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's too far away. And, for me, she didn't mean no harm. They used to do that to us
yeah,
when we were
yeah,
kids all the time.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Go play. We're right here. If you need us, come to us or whatever. In my head, I'm like, oh my God, my kids can get pulled by anybody and nobody's
Yeah,
going to know shit. I flipped. I flipped the hell out. My husband had to go to work that night. I made him drive from New York to PA to go get my damn kids. I was like, vacation over. And this is why I don't let them, because in that instance, they're thinking they're the same type of kids that we were when we grew up.
yeah,
Kids now ain't built like us. We were built
no,
different. Kids like us, had they approached us when we were kids, we'll be like, man, get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like, kids now, Well, I gentle parent, so my kids ain't built for that. I'm a gentle parent, believe it or not. Um, but no, they're just not built for that. So anybody can start a conversation and pull them away, and you speak to your kids about this all the time, but let's be serious. How many YouTube videos are out there of parents who told their kids don't go with a stranger? And,
Yeah.
they do a study and it's like, oh, can I borrow your kid? Like, can I see if he's going to come with me or whatever? And the kid goes to a random house and the parent jumps out like, what the hell are you doing? I told you never to do this. And the kid is like, I'm sorry, and it's like, uh, be sorry now, mom is here, but what if my
Yeah,
ass wasn't
man.
standing in this house?
It's crazy because you think that every other house has a Ring camera or like something on the doorbell, like a doorbell cam, something that's recording
Right.
at all fucking times. But yet there's so many kids that's still, well, like you said earlier, so many kids, black and brown, that are still missing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and then when they do get found, it's far too fucking late. You know what I mean? What they say, if you
Mm-hmm.
don't find them within the first 48 hours, you 9 times out of 10, you ain't gonna find them at all. And if you do, they're dead.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's it's entirely an overlooked fucking situation that too many people who come from low income and poor households, migrants, gays, lesbians, just people who feel underprivileged, who are underprivileged, just anybody who has any kind of like hang up, they're targeted. You know what I mean? And it's fucked up. You know what I mean? It's really fucked up. Yeah, this is a situation that I think we might have to do another like a part 2 and like touch back on this again.
Yeah, I think so because there's so much out there. There's so little yet so much out there to discuss on this topic. This is such a serious
Yeah,
situation, such a serious topic.
I want to find some resources. Like I want to bring you on for a part 2 to this. I want to find some resources that we maybe can help people with who
Oh,
are listening
I
and
thought I
such.
wrote it down. I thought I wrote it down, but I did screenshot some. I did take pictures of some of the resources. So yeah,
Okay.
part two is definitely in need.
Yeah, definitely,
Um,
definitely, definitely.
and I'll make sure I write down that information and how to, help out, signs to look out for, and stuff like that. Um, but again, I even know some people who actually work with sex traffic victims. She's an awesome woman. Her name is
Okay.
Erica. She's great. I think she would be a great asset to this conversation. I don't know if she's
Absolutely. If we can
available,
get her
but
on, that would be great. I mean, if we can make that happen, that'd be great. Bring
yeah,
her
I'll
on.
see
We
if
can
I
have a
speak to
three-way
her
conversation.
tomorrow. I'll
Okay.
see if I hit her up tomorrow and have a conversation with her. But she actually does studies on this, and she actually works with survivors and victims.
Okay.
So there's a lot of ugly in this world. There's a lot of ugly in this
Yeah.
world, and parents just need to be mindful of everything, unfortunately, and having the internet at our kids' hands just makes our jobs that much harder.
It does.
Um,
It does. It does.
and,
Absolutely.
parents need to come together. I know, there's a lot of broken homes and things like that. But uncles, cousins, brothers, grandfathers, like it's so important to have a support system in the home. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these people target single families as well. Single
Absolutely. If
mothers,
men just start being
single
men,
mothers
these
are out
situations
there
won't happen.
working. Yeah, single mothers are out here working and busting their ass to try to support their kids. And, you know, having absent fathers doesn't make it any easier. And I think
Absolutely
that
not. Absolutely not.
even if a father is absent, we can't stop a man from walking out. But, we have brothers, we have cousins, we have uncles. I think, we have friends, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's been plenty of times where my kids have been in a situation and you popped out for me. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
couldn't call on my dad, but I called on you and another friend of mine, Gary. And Gary came out and drove me to one location. You picked me up from that location. Help. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a
Yeah, you
fucking
gotta have a
village,
strong
dude.
support system. You gotta have a strong support system, and you really gotta
It
have like in
takes a
situations like
village.
this, you really gotta have like good males in the corner. regardless of like if there's a dad in the picture or not. Like a lot of people think that, oh, just because this person has a dad, they're good. Not, I mean, sometimes
No, not at
you
all.
sometimes you need a different aspect. This dad might not really be into sports, so hey, Big Brother program, they got the sports guys over here, help the kid learn football.
Right.
So there's so many different things that we can do.
And even
With that
nowadays, you
being
got to be careful with that. But
yeah. but like best case scenario, we're not trying not to shelter the kids, trying not to like keep them as
right,
hermits and turtles and shit like that.
right.
So with the proper supervision and the proper research
Hmm.
and vetting, get your kids involved in things. Yeah, but with that being said, like if you can try to find the listeners out there, if you guys can try to find any local resources you have to try to help these kids, if there's any shelters where you can donate anything to these kids, because they don't really, most of the time they don't have anybody. They don't have clothes, they don't have food, they don't have anything really that local shelter or program provides them, and usually that's really not fucking much. Um
It's really not.
so
These kids are, when they're put into trafficking, women, children. When they're put into trafficking, they're left with really nothing. If they have any identification, that's removed and
yeah,
taken from them,
yeah,
as a method to keep them close. Their clothes and stuff are taken away from them. They get the bare minimum. They barely eat, you know what I'm saying? Just to
yeah.
keep them forced to do what they have to do. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And they
Keep them
keep
dependent. If
promises
you want to
over
eat,
and
you
over.
gotta come back home to here to eat, and
Right.
absolutely wear your
It's just a
protection,
really
and yeah.
screwed up. Yeah, it's a really
Yeah,
screwed up situation. But like you
it's a
said,
fucked up
that's for
cycle.
another day, another time, part two.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you for coming on the show. Like we said, we're gonna do this part 2. For everybody who's listening, whether it's on Spotify or Amazon Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or fucking YouTube or wherever you're listening on, hit the button that's underneath the shit. It's a subscribe, follow, like, whatever the fuck that shit is. Boom, 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 boom. Hit that shit. Ding, 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 ding. Hit that bang. So you get notified when part 2 comes out. Yeah, appreciate you guys' time. Appreciate you for coming through again. And yeah, till next time, y'all. Have a good one. Everybody stay safe. Take care of your kids, and just
be vigilant,
just
man. Be
be
vigilant.
there for each other. Yeah, be vigilant.
Keep
Be there for each
everybody's
other. Keep an
baby
eye on these
safe.
kids, man. Absolutely, man. Later, y'all.
All right.